Do you often suffer from swollen ankles and feet? They're often a warning sign that something in your daily diet is working against your circulation. For many seniors and adults, evening swelling, tight skin, and deep sock marks have slowly become normal when they shouldn't be. Doctors often mention salt and inflammation, but one everyday food is rarely questioned: bread. Some of the most popular UK bread brands contain hidden salt levels and ultra-refined ingredients that encourage the body to retain water, especially in the feet and lower legs. What's concerning is that many of these loaves are marketed as soft, traditional, or family-friendly, creating a false sense of safety. In this video, we'll reveal 8 UK bread brands seniors should stop eating to help reduce foot swelling. We'll also show you 3 better bread options and teach you exactly how to spot breads that can trigger fluid retention just by reading the label. Let's get to it. Number 8. Avoid Hovis thick sliced bread. Hovis is one of the most trusted bread names in the UK, and that trust is exactly why this loaf deserves attention. Hovis thick sliced bread feels like a safe, everyday choice, familiar, filling, and reliable. For many seniors and families, it's the kind of bread that ends up on the table without much thought. The thick slices are soft and satisfying, which makes them easy to eat regularly. Many people assume thicker bread means they'll eat fewer slices, but in reality, thickness quietly increases how much salt is consumed per serving. When bread is eaten multiple times a day, toast in the morning, sandwiches at lunch, bread with dinner, that salt intake builds up quickly. Even small amounts, repeated daily, can become a problem over time. For older adults especially, excess dietary salt encourages the body to retain water. As circulation naturally becomes less efficient with age, that retained fluid often settles in the lowest parts of the body, the feet, ankles, and lower legs. This is why swelling tends to worsen by the evening, even when activity levels haven't changed. There's also the issue of refinement. Hovis thick sliced bread uses a blend of flours that digest quickly. Rapid digestion can cause blood sugar spikes, which promote inflammation. Inflammation makes blood vessels more likely to leak fluid into surrounding tissues, adding to swelling and discomfort. The real concern isn't eating this bread occasionally, it's how often it becomes a daily staple. Products that feel balanced and familiar are often eaten most frequently, and that's how small dietary contributors quietly turn into long-term issues with fluid retention. Reducing foot and ankle swelling isn't about removing everything you enjoy. It's about identifying everyday foods that consistently work against circulation and fluid balance. And coming up, you'll see how a bread that's marketed as a healthier alternative may actually be even more problematic for swelling. Number 7. Avoid Kingsmill 50/50 bread. Kingsmill 50/50 is often chosen by people trying to make a healthier decision without giving up white bread completely. The name itself suggests balance, half white, half wholemeal, and that makes it feel like a smart upgrade from standard white loaves. For seniors and parents especially, it sounds like a responsible middle ground. The issue is that the health perception doesn't match how the bread actually behaves in the body. Despite the wholemeal element, this loaf is still heavily refined and designed to be soft, light, and easy to eat. That softness encourages larger portions and more frequent use, which matters when salt intake is part of the equation. Like many mainstream sliced breads, Kingsmill 50/50 contains enough salt per slice that daily consumption can quietly push people over a healthy threshold. When bread shows up at breakfast and lunch and sometimes again at dinner, sodium intake adds up faster than most people realize. For those already prone to fluid retention, that extra salt signals the body to hold onto water. As we age, the body becomes less efficient at moving fluid upward against gravity. Excess water often settles in the ankles and feet, where circulation is weakest. This is why swelling often appears later in the day, even when diet hasn't changed much except for small, repeated exposures like bread. There's also the blood sugar factor. Because this loaf still digests relatively quickly, it can trigger glucose spikes. These spikes promote inflammation, and inflammation increases the permeability of blood vessels. When vessels become leakier, fluid escapes into surrounding tissue more easily, worsening puffiness and discomfort in the lower legs. What makes Kingsmill 50/50 particularly tricky is its reputation. People don't see it as a problem food, so they don't monitor how often they eat it. Over time, that trust can work against anyone trying to manage swelling. Reducing foot and ankle swelling often means reassessing foods that feel good enough but are eaten every day. And next, you'll see how an even softer, more comforting loaf can place just as much strain on fluid balance, if not more. Number 6. Avoid Robert's soft white bread. Robert's soft white bread is often associated with comfort and tradition. It's the kind of loaf people grow up with: soft, light, and easy to chew. For seniors especially, that softness feels practical and gentle, making it a common choice for daily meals. But that softness comes at a cost. To achieve that light, fluffy texture, this bread is made using highly refined flour and formulation methods that prioritize shelf life and consistency over how the body processes it. The result is a loaf that's easy to eat in larger amounts without feeling full. Salt plays a quiet but important role here. Like many soft white breads, Robert's soft white contains enough sodium per slice that regular consumption can steadily increase daily salt intake. When bread is eaten across multiple meals, this becomes one of the largest hidden contributors to excess sodium in the diet. For people prone to swelling, that extra salt encourages the body to hold on to water. As circulation slows with age, fluid naturally pools in the lower legs and feet. This is why swelling often feels worse by the end of the day, even if activity levels stay the same. The refined nature of this bread also affects blood sugar. Because it digests quickly, it can cause rapid rises in glucose levels. These spikes promote low-grade inflammation, and inflammation makes blood vessels more likely to leak fluid into surrounding tissue. Over time, this can make swelling more persistent and harder to reduce. What makes breads like this especially problematic is how easily they fit into daily routines. Toast in the morning, sandwiches at lunch, a slice with dinner, none of it feels excessive on its own. But together, they create a steady pattern that works against fluid balance. When trying to manage foot and ankle swelling, it's often the softest, most familiar breads that need closer attention. And as you'll see next, budget-friendly supermarket loaves can create the same issue, sometimes even more so. Number 5. Avoid Tesco own-brand white toasty bread. Tesco's own brand white toasty bread is a staple in many households because it's affordable, widely available, and designed to please everyone at the table. It's soft, slices are thick, and it toasts well, which makes it an easy default choice for families and seniors alike. The problem is that toasty-style breads are engineered for softness and flavor, and salt plays a major role in achieving both. While the packaging may not look alarming, the salt content per slice is often higher than people expect, especially when the slices are thick. When eaten daily, this bread can quietly become one of the largest sources of sodium in the diet. Because it's inexpensive and familiar, this loaf tends to show up often breakfast toast, lunch sandwiches, and sometimes alongside dinner. That repetition matters. Even moderate salt levels, when consumed several times a day, can encourage the body to retain fluid. For people already experiencing foot or ankle swelling, this fluid retention usually shows up in the evening. Shoes feel tighter, ankles look puffier, and socks leave deeper marks. These symptoms are often blamed on standing too long or getting older, when in reality diet is playing a larger role than expected. There's also the issue of how this bread is processed. Made with highly refined white flour, it digests quickly and can cause blood sugar spikes. Those spikes promote inflammation, and inflammation makes blood vessels more permeable. When vessels leak more easily, fluid escapes into surrounding tissue, especially in the lower legs where circulation is weaker. What makes supermarket toasty breads tricky is that they don't feel indulgent. They feel practical. But practicality often leads to frequent consumption, and frequency is what turns a seemingly harmless food into a long-term contributor to swelling. Managing fluid retention isn't about avoiding supermarkets or cutting out bread entirely. It's about recognizing which everyday staples quietly work against circulation and which ones deserve a second look. And next, we'll look at a bread that leans heavily on tradition and nostalgia, yet may be doing the body no favors when it comes to swelling. Number 4. Avoid Sainsbury's soft white farmhouse bread. Sainsbury's soft white farmhouse bread is often chosen for its traditional image. The word farmhouse suggests something simple, rustic, and closer to how bread used to be made. For many seniors and families, that label creates a sense of reassurance, as if this loaf is somehow gentler or more natural. In reality, this bread is still a modern, highly processed product. Its soft texture and long shelf life are achieved through refined flour and added salt, which quietly influence how the body handles fluid. Because it tastes mild and comforting, it's easy to eat in generous portions without realizing how much sodium is being consumed. Salt is a key concern here. When this bread is eaten regularly, the cumulative sodium intake can become significant. The body responds to excess salt by holding on to water, and for people with slower circulation, that water often settles in the ankles and feet. This is why swelling can appear or worsen even when someone feels they're eating normally. Another issue is digestion speed. Soft, white, farmhouse-style bread breaks down quickly in the body, causing rapid rises in blood sugar. These spikes contribute to inflammation, and inflammation makes blood vessels more likely to leak fluid into surrounding tissue. Over time, this process can make swelling more noticeable and more persistent. What makes this bread particularly misleading is its branding. Many people assume farmhouse means fewer additives or a simpler recipe, so they don't think to moderate how often they eat it. That trust leads to frequent consumption, which is exactly when salt and refined carbohydrates become problematic. For those trying to reduce foot and ankle swelling, this is a reminder that traditional-sounding names don't always reflect how a food behaves inside the body. Paying attention to everyday staples is often more important than cutting out obvious treats. And coming up next, we'll look at another supermarket loaf that's even more common, one that many people rely on daily without realizing how much it can contribute to fluid retention. Number 3. Avoid Morrison's white medium sliced bread. Morrison's white medium sliced bread is one of those loaves people buy without thinking. It's affordable, widely available, and designed to suit everyone in the household. For many seniors and families, it becomes a default choice simply because it's familiar and convenient. The issue with breads like this is how often they're eaten. Medium-sliced white bread is rarely treated as an occasional food. It shows up at breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner, which means its nutritional impact adds up quickly. Even when each slice seems harmless, the daily total can quietly work against the body. Salt is a major factor. This type of everyday white bread contains enough sodium that repeated servings can push the body toward fluid retention. When sodium intake rises, the body holds onto water to maintain balance. For people with slower circulation, which is common as we age, that extra fluid often settles in the lower legs and feet. This is why swelling tends to creep in gradually. It doesn't happen overnight. Instead, ankles start to look puffier in the evening, socks leave deeper marks, and shoes feel tighter by the end of the day. Because these changes happen slowly, many people don't connect them to something as ordinary as bread. There's also the problem of refined flour. Morrison's white medium sliced bread digests quickly, leading to sharp increases in blood sugar. These spikes promote inflammation, and inflammation makes blood vessels more likely to leak fluid into surrounding tissue. Over time, this process can make swelling more stubborn and harder to reduce. What makes this bread particularly tricky is that it doesn't feel indulgent or unhealthy. It feels practical. But practicality often leads to frequent consumption, and frequent consumption is what turns a basic food into a long-term contributor to swelling. For anyone trying to manage foot and ankle swelling, it's important to look closely at the foods eaten most often, not just the ones that seem obviously unhealthy. And next, we'll look at a bread that's one of the most popular toast choices in the UK and why its popularity may be part of the problem. Number 2. Avoid Warburton's toasty white bread. Warburton's toasty white bread is one of the most popular loaves in the UK, especially for toast. It's soft, slightly sweet, and designed to brown evenly, which makes it a favorite in many households. For seniors and families, it feels like a comforting, reliable option that's easy to enjoy every day. The problem is how this bread is formulated. Toasty-style breads rely heavily on salt to enhance flavor and texture. Because the slices are often thicker and denser, each serving delivers more sodium than people realize. When this bread is eaten daily, that sodium intake builds up quickly, even if the rest of the diet seems reasonable. Excess salt signals the body to retain water. For adults with reduced circulation efficiency, that retained fluid tends to move downward and collect in the ankles and feet. This is why swelling often becomes more noticeable later in the day, particularly after meals that include bread. There's also the issue of how this bread affects blood sugar. Warburton's toasty white bread is made with highly refined flour that digests rapidly. This can cause sharp blood sugar spikes, which trigger inflammation. Inflammation weakens blood vessels, making it easier for fluid to leak into surrounding tissue and worsen swelling. What makes this loaf especially problematic is how easy it is to overconsume. Toast doesn't feel heavy, and it doesn't feel like a salty food, so people rarely limit themselves. 2 slices in the morning, 2 more later in the day, it adds up quietly. If this is information you find useful, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find content like this, especially those trying to understand and manage health issues that are often overlooked. Because what comes next is something many people assume is a premium and safer choice, yet it may be one of the biggest contributors to persistent foot and ankle swelling. Number 1. Avoid M&S Super Soft White Bread. Marks and Spencer's Super Soft White Bread carries a premium image. The packaging feels reassuring, the texture is gentle, and the brand reputation leads many people to assume this is a safer, higher quality choice. For seniors and families, it often feels like an upgrade, a bread you don't have to worry about. That assumption is exactly where the problem lies. Despite its premium positioning, this loaf is still a highly refined white bread designed for softness, long shelf life, and broad appeal. Salt plays a quiet but essential role in achieving that texture and taste. When eaten regularly, the sodium content can contribute just as much to fluid retention as cheaper supermarket loaves. Because this bread doesn't taste salty, people rarely associate it with swelling. It's commonly eaten at breakfast, used for sandwiches, or served alongside meals without much thought. Over time, that repeated intake encourages the body to hold on to water, especially in those already dealing with slower circulation. As the body retains more fluid, gravity does the rest. Excess water settles in the feet and ankles, leading to puffiness, tight skin, and that familiar feeling of shoes becoming uncomfortable by evening. These symptoms are often blamed on age or activity level, when diet is quietly playing a role in the background. There's also the impact of refined carbohydrates. Super soft white bread digests quickly, which can trigger blood sugar spikes. These spikes promote inflammation, and inflammation makes blood vessels more permeable. When blood vessels leak more easily, fluid escapes into surrounding tissue, worsening swelling over time. What makes this bread particularly misleading is that it feels like a responsible choice. People trust it, rely on it, and eat it frequently. And frequency is what turns a seemingly harmless food into a long-term issue. This is why reducing foot and ankle swelling often starts with questioning even the foods that appear premium and safe. Once those hidden contributors are removed, the body has a better chance to rebalance fluid naturally. Up next, we'll shift away from what to avoid and look at bread options that are easier on circulation, including choices that can still fit into everyday meals without working against swelling. Recommended bread: 3 Hovis Nimble wholemeal bread. After looking at breads that quietly worsen fluid retention, it's important to show that cutting back doesn't mean giving up bread altogether. Hovis Nimble wholemeal bread is a good example of how small changes can make a meaningful difference, especially for people dealing with foot and ankle swelling. What sets this bread apart is portion control built into the loaf itself. The slices are thinner and lighter, which immediately reduces how much salt and refined carbohydrate you consume at one time. Even when bread is eaten daily, those smaller portions help keep sodium intake more manageable. This bread is also higher in fiber than standard white loaves. Fiber slows digestion, which helps prevent sharp blood sugar spikes. When blood sugar rises more gradually, the body produces less inflammation. And that matters, because inflammation increases the likelihood of fluid leaking from blood vessels into surrounding tissue. Lower inflammation and reduced sodium together make it easier for the body to regulate fluid balance. Instead of holding on to excess water, especially in the lower legs, the body is better able to move fluid back into circulation and process it naturally. Another benefit is awareness. Because the slices are smaller, people tend to eat more consciously. 2 slices feel like a clear portion rather than an open-ended serving. That subtle change often leads to better long-term habits, which is key when swelling has been building up over months or years. This isn't about perfection or restriction, it's about choosing breads that don't quietly work against circulation every day. For many people, simply switching to a lighter, higher fiber loaf like this can noticeably reduce how heavy and tight the legs feel by evening. And next, we'll look at another widely available bread that offers a better balance, one that feels familiar but is gentler on fluid retention and circulation overall. Recommended bread: 2 Aldi Specially Selected Sourdough Bread. Aldi's Specially Selected Sourdough Bread is a strong alternative for people looking to reduce foot and ankle swelling without cutting bread out completely. It feels more substantial, tastes richer, and behaves very differently in the body compared to soft, toasty-style loaves. One of the key differences is fermentation. Sourdough bread is made using a slower fermentation process, which changes how the carbohydrates are broken down. This slower digestion helps prevent sharp blood sugar spikes, reducing the inflammatory response that can make blood vessels leak fluid into surrounding tissue. Texture matters here as well. This bread is firmer and more filling, which naturally limits how much is eaten in one sitting. Because it doesn't disappear effortlessly like ultra-soft white bread, people tend to eat it more mindfully. Fewer slices mean less salt intake overall, which supports better fluid balance. Many sourdough varieties also rely less on added salt for flavor because fermentation develops taste naturally. While it's still important to check the label, these loaves often contain less salt per slice than toast-focused breads. Lower sodium intake helps the body release excess water instead of retaining it, a critical factor for reducing swelling. Another benefit is satiety. Because sourdough is more filling, it reduces the urge to snack or stack multiple slices throughout the day. This steadier eating pattern supports circulation and helps prevent the gradual buildup of fluid in the lower legs. For people managing swelling, this type of bread represents a meaningful upgrade. It supports steadier digestion, lower inflammation, and better portion control, all without feeling restrictive or unfamiliar. Up next, we'll move to the final recommended bread, one that's widely available, easy to switch to, and among the gentlest mainstream options for circulation and fluid retention. Recommended bread 1: Waitrose Soft White Farmhouse Bread. For people who don't enjoy the texture of wholemeal bread, Waitrose Soft White Farmhouse Bread is one of the better mainstream options available. It feels familiar, tastes mild, and fits easily into everyday meals. But it's formulated in a way that's generally easier on fluid balance than many other soft white loaves. One of the main advantages of this bread is portion control through slice size and composition. The slices are not overly thick, which helps limit how much salt is consumed at one time. When bread is eaten daily, that difference matters. Lower sodium intake makes it easier for the body to release excess water rather than retain it. This bread also avoids the extreme softness found in toasty-style loaves. Because it's slightly firmer, people tend to eat it more mindfully and are less likely to overconsume without realizing. That subtle change can significantly reduce daily sodium and refined carbohydrate intake over time. Another benefit is how the body processes it. Compared to ultra-soft white breads, this loaf tends to digest a little more slowly, which helps reduce sharp blood sugar spikes. More stable blood sugar means less inflammation, and less inflammation reduces the tendency for blood vessels to leak fluid into surrounding tissues. For those dealing with foot and ankle swelling, these small improvements add up. Less salt, steadier digestion, and more mindful portions all support healthier circulation and better fluid regulation throughout the day. This bread shows that managing swelling doesn't require extreme changes. Sometimes it's about choosing the best option within a familiar category, one that works with your body instead of against it. Up next, we'll pull everything together and show you exactly how to spot breads that can worsen swelling so you can make better choices no matter where you shop. How to spot bread that can cause foot and ankle swelling. Once you know what to look for, identifying breads that may worsen swelling becomes much easier. The goal isn't to memorize brand names forever, but to understand the patterns that cause problems so you can make better choices anywhere you shop. The first thing to check is salt per slice, not just salt per 100 grams. Many labels look harmless until you realize the slices are thick. A bread with moderate salt per 100 grams can still deliver a high dose per slice if the loaf is cut generously. When bread is eaten multiple times a day, those small amounts add up quickly and encourage the body to retain water. Next, pay attention to texture descriptors. Words like super soft, toasty, or extra fluffy usually signal heavy processing. These breads are designed to be easy to eat and palatable, which often means more refined flour and added salt. Highly refined bread digests quickly, causing blood sugar spikes that promote inflammation and make blood vessels more likely to leak fluid. Another warning sign is how easy it is to overeat. If a bread goes down effortlessly and never feels filling, it's more likely to contribute to excess intake. Over time, that leads to higher sodium exposure and more strain on circulation, especially in the lower legs. It's also important to be cautious with traditional or premium-sounding labels. Terms like farmhouse, classic, or artisan style don't guarantee a better formulation. Many modern loaves with these names are still produced using refined flour and salt-heavy recipes. On the safer side, breads that are lower in salt per slice, slightly firmer in texture, and higher in fiber tend to be easier on fluid balance. Fiber slows digestion, supports better blood sugar control, and reduces inflammatory stress on blood vessels. Finally, remember that swelling is often the result of daily habits, not occasional treats. Bread eaten once in a while is rarely the issue. It's the loaf that appears at breakfast, lunch, and dinner that quietly shapes how the body handles fluid. With this awareness, you're no longer relying on guesswork or marketing claims. You're equipped to spot breads that work against circulation and choose options that better support comfort, mobility, and long-term health. If you found this breakdown helpful, consider sharing it with someone who struggles with swollen feet or ankles. These are issues many people live with quietly, assuming nothing can be done. And if you want more clear, practical explanations like this, focused on everyday foods and real health concerns, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps this information reach the people who need it most. Small, informed changes add up. And when it comes to swelling, comfort often starts with what's on your plate.